Okay. Today's content objective for the unit of for the chapter 2 is going to be explain why some regions of the world face health threats. These notes will cover 2.3 and 2.4 in your 2020 Rubenstein text. Your ICANN statements summarize the 4 stages of the epidemiological transition model. 2. Summarize the reasons for a possible stage 5 of the epidemiological transition. 3. Explain reasons for variations in healthcare. And 4. Compare and contrast Malthusians, Neo-Malthusians, and Malthusian critics, also referred to as cornucopians, in their theories on overpopulation. Here's a quick Edpuzzle if you want to learn more about Malthusian's theory on overpopulation. What's Malthusian? Thomas Malthusian was around near about 770 years after the Industrial Revolution when he began to see population grow exponentially fast. So they were in stage 2. He stated that population is growing geometrically while the food supply is growing arithmetically, meaning population was growing fast, meanwhile food supply was growing more linearly. He argued that the world, as it continued population growth, that the world would not keep pace with the nutrient requirements to sustain the population growth, because he stated he stated that farmers could not produce enough to meet the population growth. Overpopulation, as defined in your text, is a lack of resources to sustain a population. Overpopulation is a serious concern today, where countries are in stage 2 due to the medical revolution and not keeping up, or food supplies not keeping up with population growth. In areas where Malthusian's theory is very much alive would be sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia. Malthusian critics, also cornucopians, argue that it's too pessimistic. Malthus' theory is based only on world supply of food, and it was fixed rather than expanding, so he didn't take into account for technological development for food production or advanced development of food production. Many disagree that population increase is a problem. Larger populations could stimulate economic growth. So with more people born, more people could be in the labor force, and therefore they could produce more food. Malthus on overpopulation, his theory and reality. Food production has increased over the last 50 years faster than Malthus predicted. We see that in areas that have adopted the Green Revolution, which we'll talk about in agriculture. His model predicted world population would quadruple over the course of the 50 years. Not even in India has population growth outpaced food production. But a concern, as I already mentioned in the previous slide, is a reality in sub-Saharan Africa, which, as we learned earlier in population, they have the highest natural increase rates of any region in the world. The cornucopians were largely Malthusian critics that was started by Julian Simon. And again, the basis of their theory is that resources do not exist in nature but are created by human ingenuity and advancement. Boserup's theory or thesis is based on past agriculture improvements occur as a result of population pressure. So when population pressures the advancement in agriculture, agriculture will improve to meet those population growth pressures. We look at India and their past with going back to the 1960s, we can see that we have population growing exponentially. And with that, we see the rice production and wheat production outpacing that of population because they adopted the Green Revolution and the HYV seed, or the golden rice or golden wheat seed. All right. Why does population growth vary amongst region? Demographic transition possible stage 5. Remember, that's where you have negative NIR, so the CBR is lower than the CDR. You have more elderly, so you have a high elderly dependency. And over time, few women will be childbearing. Several European countries already have a negative NIR. Europe is another notable possible negative NIR for the next 50 years. And then other regions like China and Japan would be fit in there as well as possible stage 5 countries. epidemiological stages essentially mirror that of DTM stages. So when we look at epidemiological stages, keep in mind we're looking at health threats to each stage. An epidemiologist studies diseases and viruses and the spreading of them. And epidemiology is the medical science concerned with incidences, distribution, and control of diseases, like the CDC, the Center for Disease and Control. Stage 1 is pestilence and infectious diseases. These are parasitic diseases that arise by a parasite. It can be a bacteria parasite, it can be a fungi parasite. And some of the most notable stage 1 infectious diseases would have been the Black Plague or the bubonic plague. No countries in stage 1 today. Stage 2 of the epidemiological stage states that pandemic is a disease that occurs over a wide geographical area. But you have a receding pandemic in stage 2. Disease that, again, occurs over a wide range of area and affects a very high portion of a population. But with the receding, you have in stage 2, with the DTM stage 2, most countries will industrialize. When they industrialize, they'll improve sanitation and they'll improve stopping the spread of diseases. But death rates still remain high due to the pandemic. Examples throughout history would have been cholera pandemic in London in the 1800s. Where we see stage 2 countries today, keep in mind Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, where we see a lack of clean drinking water, and we also see a lack of food production keeping pace with population growth. This just talks about the study in London and how Dr. Snow, between the years of 1813 and 1856, he was a British physician and a geographer, to fight one of the worst 19th century pandemics, the cholera. Snow created a handmade GIS in 1854, and then he created a map of London's Soho neighborhoods. Snow overlapped, created mashup maps showing how to address the cholera, and basically he located all the water pumps in London. And then then with his mashup maps, he found poor residents of the Soho were the principal source of the water for drinking, cleaning, and cooking. So he found that it was a vector-borne disease. It was clustered around a pump, and that mostly was because of the impoverished neighborhood of Soho, which used that water for drinking, cleaning, and cooking. They didn't sanitize the water from the pump. All right, that shows you the cholera concentration. All right, DTM stage 3. DTM stage 3, remember that's moderate growth in DTM. With moderate growth, we see improvement of medical care, as we learned in DTM stages. With improvement of medical care, we'll see degenerative diseases, chronic diseases, human-caused diseases. These caused diseases are usually by human behavior. And chronic diseases also occur with aging population as well. These diseases most notably are cardiovascular, heart diseases, or cancer, or diabetes would fit in there as well. And then also where we see low incidence of cancer and cardiovascular diseases and chronic diseases would be stage 2 countries, Sub-Saharan Africa, because they don't live as long, and also their nutrition, they don't consume as much food. All right, stage 4 would be delayed degenerative diseases. Stage 4 is when we begin to see ZPG in the DTM, but we also know women enter the workforce. Most people live in urban areas. There's going to be a continued advancement in medical care. And with this, we see the delaying of cardiovascular diseases and cancer. Usually it's by medicines or pharmaceutical drugs that are used as treatments. Okay, and we can look at cancer rates. And we can look at, wait for the cursor, obesity rates. And again, obesity would tell us that there is degenerative diseases, human-caused diseases, such as heart disease or diabetes or even cancer. What are the stage 4 region health threats? One of the concerns is going to be human behavior of drug addiction, opioid addiction. It's almost exclusively in countries that are stage 4. So stage 4 countries are going to be more economically developed. They're going to have expendable income. And they're also going to have advanced medical and healthcare, so pharmaceutical drugs, opiate pharmaceutical drugs. All right, and in stage 5, it's possible reemergence of an infectious disease. And the reason for this is the infectious diseases, the microbes evolve. As we can see with the COVID-19, that would be a virus that evolves. And as it evolves, there will be new strains of the virus that's resistant to antibiotics. Poverty is another reason. The more prevalent infectious diseases are more prevalent in poor areas where they have unsanitary conditions. So they'll have bacteria and they'll have virus diseases. And increasing connections. So with advancements of transportation, most people now can fly by air travel, and it makes it easier to infect one country to another country. That's why with the COVID-19 we saw the shutting down of borders of much of the countries in the world. Possible stage 5 evolution in sub-Saharan Africa. Ebola. We look at tuberculosis, found in areas where they're least developed. They have high rates of poverty. We see infectious diseases in the United States. And this infectious disease is AIDS. And we can see AIDS is concentrated in urban areas, large major city urban areas. Pandemic connections, again, AIDS and Ebola. AIDS has been eradicated in more developed regions because of the AZT drug, but it is still the most significant pandemic today outside of the global pandemic of COVID-19, because AIDS still amasses more deaths than what COVID-19 would on an annual basis. All right, that takes us to the end.